come up and ask questions like this. If you go to the hospital and then, God forbid, you don't have anybody at home that can help you when you go home, or even go home to an assisted living, you need more than that many times. We only have 2 large ones right now, and then we have 2 smaller ones, Mary Health and then University Village, they're part, but they're very small. Space is definitely limited. Has anybody thought of looking into, ahead of the fact that we really have to have it, that if a developer could put in some skilled nursing facility? Al, anybody who starts first?
Yeah, that's interesting you should bring that up. And I do know we have a lack of that particular. I mean, we have assisted living, we have senior housing, we have transitional housing, skilled nursing we're a little bit behind on. But I did just hear tell of a couple of potential situations that are coming up. I can't get into it too much in detail, but it would have to do with Los Robles Hospital, who would be a great provider, and they're looking to expand into that area. And there's even a site that's being talked about. And it was a site that had been used for something else. Was supposed to be used for something else, but now it may be repositioned into skilled nursing. So I'm glad you brought that up. I'm on it. In fact, I just talked to a fellow who brought that very subject to me the other day.
I hear it all the time. People really experience not being able to find a place locally and ending up in Van Nuys or Fillmore, and that shouldn't be because your family can't come see you.
Yes.
So just an important issue.
We need all the stages.
Yes, we do.
We want to age in place, but when we can, we want to transition to maybe to here, to assisted living, and then ultimately maybe to skilled nursing, and so yeah, so we got to fill in all the blanks.
Thank you, Al.
Good question.
Other candidates, any response?
Yeah, I don't know of anything in the works right now, but I have firsthand experience with my in-laws who lived in Thunderbird Oaks, and as they aged into their 90s, were both faced with similar issues, and it was at that time that I found that we were underutilized in that area. But fortunately, they both ended up at Thousand Oaks Healthcare. My father-in-law has since passed on, but they've been very happy there for the facility. But it's definitely hard to get into, and we could use more. Thanks.
I'm actually a part of the community senior living group. Nancy is also a member of that as well. And we've been talking a lot about this because there is a need here. And right now, there are 3 facilities. Out of 5 stars, one of our facilities has 2 stars. The other 2 facilities have 1 star. So not only do we not have an adequate number of beds and homes, but we also don't have any of the kind of standard and quality that we would expect for our loved ones and our seniors. Andrea Gallagher with the Living Group, she is helping us to move forward with this. We're looking at all kinds of different issues with space, with licensing, with how to attract the skilled nurses here. And then the other thing that we really need to make sure we look at, and I think Al was maybe alluding to, is that within the confines of our city, we have many unused and underused properties. The old Velvet Turtle Restaurant, the old Armstrong Nursery, the Plumbers Furniture Showroom on Thousand Oaks Boulevard. We have a lot of areas where we could build these kinds of assisted living, skilled nursing facilities, as well as affordable housing. So we have the space. We just need to now make a concentrated effort to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, candidates. Yes.
Okay, well, we talk about affordable housing, especially for seniors, but we have to address what the issue really is the city council allocates units for housing. They do it through Measure E. They've done it for the Boulevard, and I support the Boulevard plan, but not once did I hear any talk about actually allocating some of those units and negotiating with the developers to actually put some senior housing in on the Boulevard. that's going to be a major problem if we're giving them all the units or most of the units remaining under Measure E. Where are we going to put the senior housing? We don't even have the redevelopment agency anymore, so the city cannot help build senior housing. So what I want to know from all of the candidates, are you going to actually help negotiate with the developers and say, well, in order to get these projects done, you're going to have to make some concessions and give us senior housing. Now, some of the developers say that may decline to do that and say they'll go elsewhere, and I don't buy that they would do that, because the boulevard is a prime area for them to build on, and it wouldn't take much for them to allocate some of their units that they're given to senior housing. They can do mixed income and mix with senior housing with the market rate housing. The project at Lupe's, which is going to be at Lupe's, there was no mention of any mixed income housing there to add housing for seniors. So I want to know, are you going to really negotiate with these developers and stand up for the seniors? Because from what I'm seeing, it seems like the Boulevard Association is getting all the, they're getting more leverage than the seniors.
Thanks, Chase. Well, actually, we already are. We've been Pinecrest Schools, we mentioned a number of times here. Again, that's an 11-acre site, and the school is closing, and the site is up for sale. You may have heard of the potential developer, KB Homes, and they're a national organization, and as I mentioned, they came to us originally with a proposal to put in 144 townhouses. We rejected it. We told them, look, you're going to have to bring a public benefit to us before we look at this project, and the public benefit we asked for is senior affordable housing. We have a lot of affordable housing. I mean, I've made a list here. We have 42 affordable housing projects. We sunk $63 million into them, 2,500 units. We have 4 affordable senior housing apartments. We have our 7 senior affordable mobile home parks. We have 7 assisted living units. We have University Village. We have the Reserve. We have 2 pending assisted living projects at Grande Vista and Duesenberg, and now we have Pinecrest pending. So it's not like, you know, the council, past councils and this particular council have not concentrated on this area. We have, because we know we face a growing senior population. So Pinecrest is a good example of where we want to see senior affordable housing mixed in with market rate. And it's going to happen, because if they don't give it to us, we're not going to approve it. It's simple as that. I'll tell you though, I want to throw one thing at you. There's a balance that we have to strike here. And we know our seniors need to be taken care of. They need to have affordable housing. Housing is a great place to retire. But we're missing one other thing. And that's affordable housing for young people. Gateway housing. How many of you folks have kids that live here in town or can't live here in town because they can't afford it? That's a problem. I have 2 daughters. They're 18 years old. They're at University of California, Santa Barbara. I just went to visit them yesterday. When they graduate, I'd like them to be able to come back to Thousand Oaks and live here. So we have to, in an answer to Chase's question, we have to balance senior affordable with entry-level housing for young people as well. Sure. It's important that we bring young people into this community. They bring vitality, they bring jobs, they bring highly skilled skills that they've learned, and we want our kids to be able to grow up here and continue to live here. Yeah, so that's important. It's very important. And like I said, I like my girls to be able to come back. They grew up here. They went to Westlake Elementary. They went to Colina. They went to Westlake High School. Now I don't want them to have to move to Santa Monica. So on the boulevard, we may be looking a little bit more towards entry-level housing for young people. That's the way we may be going that way. But the boulevard's a long way off. You know, the only project we're even looking at so far is 30 units. It's a small project, so we're on the precipice of moving with the boulevard. So, but it's a balance. Remember that. Thank you.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. I think that was a very knowledgeable response, and certainly my sentimentality is to move forward with this.
I have actually talked a lot about senior affordable living and affordable living in general on the boulevard. Whether it's on Conejo School Road, where we now have an apartment building going in that is not affordable, and it is strictly for millennials. So we need to look at where are we going to house people and where are we going to do it affordably. I think that the Boulevard is actually a perfect space for this. I think that the mixed use idea with restaurants and shops below and residences above is perfect for millennials and seniors. We have a daughter who lives in Arlington, Virginia. She lives in such a building. It's wonderful because you have all of this intergenerational mixing happening, and it's great for everybody. So I would highly, highly suggest that we follow through with that on the Boulevard, that concept. I also want to just share that we're often told developers only want money. That's all they care about. I've met two throughout this process who really want to build affordable housing for millennials, for seniors, for families. These are people who have gone out of their way, who live here in Thousand Oaks, who've gone out of their way to go to Bakersfield and build sustainable, LEED technology-driven, affordable housing for farm workers. So these are people who really are wanting to make sure that everyone has a place to live that they can be proud of. Now, I am not quite as confident as Al is about the KB homes in the Pinecrest School. I remember when Doski and Dos, the deal was, you can have all this land, but you need to build 225 affordable senior units for residences. And those units were never built because there's another choice. They can build the neighborhoods and then just pay a fine. So we need to make sure that that does not happen here. Pinecrest is too important. It's the perfect spot for affordable living for our seniors. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. In the back, Sally?
I have two questions for you. I can combine them. I am very concerned about water. And I hear you talking about building this. I hear you talking about building this and that. But what are you doing to conserve or save water? I know where your water district is and so forth, which is part of the metropolitan system. So I'd like to know about that. And secondarily, I think I know two of you are in favor of measures C and W, but I don't know about you, Mr. Martin. So if you could tell me about that, I would be appreciated.
Thank you, Sally.
All right, I guess. That's a very good question about water. Thousand Oaks is 100% dependent on imported water, 100%. We don't have the luxury of some cities that, although we may change that. We did a study to tap potentially the groundwater here in Thousand Oaks. Hasn't been tapped since the 50s when we used it for ranches to water cattle. And the wells are bubbling over. And we think we may be able to supplement our water supply as much as 10 to 15% with groundwater. But we're working on that. The study says we can do it, now we have to see if we can implement it. The city itself has stepped up where our water use is down about 30%. We're not watering the medians. We just converted 30 acres of land at the Los Chopes Golf Course to drought-resistant landscape. The Canal Wrekin Park District has converted hundreds and hundreds of acres from turf to drought-resistant landscape. So our water consumption is down considerably, and it's not only is it saving water, which is good, but it's saving a lot of money. We're saving about $700,000 a year on water use that we used to pay before we started this conservation. So, you know, as far as new construction in the city, yes, they'll need water. But they're not going to need water like they did in the old days. We're not building mansions anymore with giant front yards and backyards and lawns and all that. We are a built-out city. The Dos Vientoses of the world are over. We're looking back internally to infill projects that would involve perhaps apartments and condominiums. And yes, they'll need water, but they don't have the lawns, they don't have the water demands that some of the big houses do in the suburbs. And they'll have the latest in plumbing fixtures and we've done studies that the impact of, say, you know, 100, we mentioned Pinecrest, 140 units of Pinecrest would be so minimal, it won't even be noticed. I'm not saying we shouldn't continue to conserve water, because it looks like we're in just pretty much a permanent drought. It really does. It's the new normal in California, but the city is well aware of that, and we are working hard to save as much water as possible, and we're encouraging our residents to do the same. Mr. Martin.
First thing I'd like to do is clear up the C and W issue. I've definitely waffled on this issue. I think SOAR has served us very well in its time. I signed the petition to get it back on the ballot, and I supported it. And then I heard some input on W, and I think it's a sign of an open mind to listen to opposing viewpoints. And I started leaning towards W, and on Sunday I was at the street fair and I met with the SOAR people and said that I had been back and forth on this issue, and I didn't really know why. The paper said that I was for W, but it's probably because I've been back and forth on it. And now I'm back and forth again. I'm going with W. I think it works better for the farming community. And I also know that both of my opponents sitting up here are being supported by SOAR. So it's so I'm going to be supporting W. And as far as water, gosh, you know, the only thing people understand really is in the pocketbook, unfortunately. The water issue is way bigger than Thousand Oaks, and way bigger than the state. It's a worldwide issue. And I believe that, you know, we have to do everything we can to conserve, and if we have to hit the pocketbook, but I'm afraid it's up to nature to really solve the issue, and the only thing we can do is conserve, conserve, and conserve more, and that has to be reflected in our building and in resident usage. Thank you.
Well, I am actually being endorsed by Linda Parks, and one of the reasons is because she says I was instrumental in getting SOAR placed on the ballot. I am a firm believer in Measure C and Measure W. Al and I do support SOAR. It's not the other way around. Al actually was one of the co-authors of the measure. So the water, yes, it's a huge issue here and everywhere. Construction takes an inordinate amount of water. So I would propose that we only do construction utilizing gray recycled water. That is a great way to do it without using the potable water that we all need. I have a bit of a problem with the way that we allocate the fines and the water usage. It is definitely not fair to those on fixed incomes and those with lower incomes coming in. Our daughter actually worked for the city of Thousand Oaks, and she worked with the water issues. And she says that there is a disparaging amount of water used on one side of the freeway as opposed to the other. And that is because on one side of the freeway, people are more able to pay the fines, so they water their lawns and do all the things that we're encouraging people not to do. And on the other side of the freeway, they are not using it for those kinds of things, but using it for their families. So I think that we really need to take a good look at that structure and make sure it's fair for everyone. And the last thing that I'll say on the water too is that I don't know about you guys, but I get really frustrated when I'm catching water in a bucket when I run the water to get it hot to wash dishes, or in my shower and then use that to water outside. And then I'm driving around the city and I see all of these sprinklers hitting trees or hitting a sign or hitting something, and we end up watering the street. So maybe we could go around and really take a good look at fixing some of those as well. Thank you.
Thank you all. Did you ladies have a question?
I have a question.
No.
You had your hand up first. You go ahead.
Okay.
I think Billy Martin meant he was in favor of W for Thousand Oaks.
Oh, not when you said, we don't want F. F is for flunking, failure, fraud. No.
Jeez.
Is that right? Okay, anyway, my question is, I have gone into the city to look at some of the plans of the projects that are being proposed for the boulevard. And one thing that concerns me a lot is that they seem to, the plans right away want to cut down the oak trees that are along the street or the big sycamores that are close to the street. And my point here is we're all getting old and we like to walk down a shady street, not a barring hot street. So I don't like to, I think that if we could widen the areas and take care of these oak trees, some of them, especially the one in front of the old vet clinic, if you, these aren't very old trees, they're probably 50, 60, 70 years old. They're not the big, huge ones, but they're big enough and they're shady enough to want to save them and not put in crepe myrtles or the smaller pistache trees, but our grandchildren are going to need oxygen to breathe, so I think we need to do everything we can to not cut down these trees. What do you think, you guys?
Thank you.
Hey, I just want to get back to SOAR for just a quick minute. SOAR stands for Save Open Space and Agricultural Resources. It was passed by a huge majority of the county residents back in the mid-90s, and it simply means that if the city wants to expand beyond its boundaries to build into farmland or open space, it's going to take a vote of the people to do it. Now the results are obvious. We have 10 cities in the county of Ventura. They're all separate cities. They haven't bled together like the concrete counties of Los Angeles and Orange. And so I tell you that SOAR works. I served on the SOAR board for 10 years. I'm a contributor to the SOAR both financially and in my time. And when you get your ballot, you'll see the SOAR initiative there and my name's on it. I've signed it. So I'm one of the backers. So the moral of the story, if you believe in SOAR, do y'all believe in SOAR? You believe in preserving our open space?
Yes.
Then you want to vote for Ann and I. Because we are of the 4 candidates, we're the 2 strongest proponents of SOAR. Now, what was your question? No, I think I know what it was. I had to get that out.
Say many oak trees along 1,000 Oaks Boulevard.
Yes, yes. Okay, good question. I love our oak trees. I've been an oak tree advocate since I was on the planning commission. I was against the owner planted exemption and all this stuff that is designed to try to threaten our trees. We just passed the strictest oak tree law in the history of the city, and I like to think that I had something to do with that. And the council voted, you know, we're going to try to rebuild the boulevard, an infrastructure project. We want to beautify the boulevard. We want to put in beautiful street trees, and we want to widen the sidewalks a little bit, make it walkable and friendly. And we want to put in some street furniture and some lighting, and really make it a delightful place to visit. But the council did vote 5-0 to look at putting oak trees on the boulevard. In fact, the talk is that, you know, as you enter into our little downtown, that an oak tree could be the centerpiece, you know, of our downtown, a beautiful Quercus lobata or whatever tree would fit. So, and there's a way to plant oak trees now. It's called silvacell. And you know, because oak trees tend to be invaded with their roots, but if you plant them in the